the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. Clint, how are you?
I'm excellent.
You were talking to me recently about how throughout your career, something that you've noticed in yourself is that when it comes to high stakes situations, you don't necessarily get that adrenaline dump that you used to get.
Yeah, that it's funny to really look back at throughout my career is going to those man gun calls, going to those shootings, the high tense situations to where you would get ramped up with adrenaline and you can't always control your adrenaline response to things, but over the time, the exposure to it is you just don't have the same physiological impacts that you once had.
When you work in such a high stakes career like you do, many people don't realize this, but your nervous system actually becomes wired to thrive on crisis. And when something is silent and you don't have that anymore, or when you do have that and it just so happens to be that you're in the midst of not taking part in that in the moment, for example, a call goes out and then dispatch tells you don't need to show up to it, for example, things change.
Yeah, it's you have this ramped up response and then you crash and I can really remember like one day in my career that I was on training and it was adrenaline high, adrenaline dump all throughout the day. Like I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was crazy cause that was my first real exposure to it. And it was all in one day. And looking back at that now, I'm like, why did I even get an adrenaline spike over this stuff? I've gone to so many of those now. It's crazy.
Now, for a lot of people, they don't have that time in their career where they have the moment of being able to settle into the calmness in the midst of something chaotic happening. And there are a few reasons for this, but for the flip side of it, Clint, you're a very calm person as it is. You've done a lot of the self-work in order to be able to understand how to self-regulate your nervous system. And so that 100% plays into why you've improved on that throughout your career. But for a lot of people too, there are times where it doesn't matter how long they've been in their career, that just doesn't go away. And I'm thinking about one officer in particular who he's literally that type of person that just cannot stand still. And it's very evident that the silence and the calmness makes him feel very uncomfortable. And the reality is because your nervous system has been wired to not feel safe in the midst of that calm and safe space.
Yeah, and I think especially in seeing the newer officers kind of come up in our department, it's one thing is we want to instill upon them and teach them to find a balance with it, to where don't chase those adrenaline highs, don't chase that stuff, because you want to be able to be calm in the madness. Because if you're all amped up and crazy during those instances, guess what? The people around you are going to be that way too, because just a normal citizen isn't going to have that full understanding. But the calmer you are, they're going to feed off of your energy.
What happens on a neurological level is that the brain learns to crave that adrenaline surge and it wants that constant exposure. But what you may not realize is that you're being constantly exposed to stress. And I think having these high alert environments makes calm feel foreign and even suspicious.
Yeah, I think if you're always chasing that adrenaline high, you're going to do things that you wouldn't normally do because you're always trying to, you're not comfortable in your own skin on just a normal basis.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can flip the switch and turn this on, or your environment can flip the switch and turn this on, and you have this emotional whiplash when you return to home. And so an example of this would be that the drop from your adrenaline is going to leave you feeling restless or irritable. So maybe you're lashing out on your spouse or your kids, or you're that person tossing and turning all night and who can't fall asleep.
Yeah, being able to recognize that and make a change and to really adapt to it is super important. But you're going to do things that you wouldn't normally. I mean, you wouldn't normally do as your normal self.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes for a lot of people, family time can feel super empty or even flat after a chaotic shift. And this doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. This is simply information and something to identify when it's happening. That way you can cue in to some things that you might be able to do in order to improve it.
Yeah, and I think this goes with any line of work, even more so in the first responder realm, but it's being able to separate yourself and to create that dynamic and don't identify yourself as that person chasing that adrenaline high all the time.
I think too that when somebody is always seeking stimulation, it can actually do a lot of damage to your relationships, and you might not see it now, but what I've heard from people who've experienced this is that it leads to a lot of burnout. And the burnout I'm talking about is not just like you're super tired. You know, when we talk about the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it truly does. And this can manifest in a lot of health problems later on.
Yeah, because your nervous system is always being ramped up and you're going to crash eventually because you can't live at that high speed normalcy all the time because you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to not have that sense of calm. You need to have those decompression areas in your life to be able to separate yourself from.
Yeah. And I have, I told you a few days ago, like, I think I'm getting sick, and I've been going so hard lately, so hard that my body is like screaming at me. And I think too that this element of stress happens not only for first responders, but if you're a very high level performer, and I'm saying that because I'm thinking back to what I just said about family time, like feeling flat. If I'm out, like we're gonna go over to my dad's house later. I know that when I'm there, I will have a tendency to have this pull of like, I need to do this, because I am firing constantly all day long from all angles. And it's difficult to swing out of that, but there are ways to be able to self-regulate. And I think the first and most important thing is to recognize when that's happening to you and when it shouldn't be.
Yeah, having that recognition is one thing that probably, like, in a way is like looking at the AA steps, and it's having that sense of recognition to say, okay, I recognize that this shouldn't be going on right now, but I'm trying to put myself in that situation, being able to have that separation.
Or even pre-framing it in the way that I just did, right? I know that I have a tendency to have this happen to me going over to my dad's. And so one thing that I do is I try my damnedest to not look at my cell phone, right? Not see who needs what from me and what kind of to-do list is piling up for me before I even get back to my office.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you're really good at is you've set that. Over the last few days, you've especially set this kind of foundation of, okay, on Sunday, on this day, I am not doing any of this stuff. And you're going to have that pulling you towards doing the to-do list, to doing the stuff that you need to do. But you've already formatted your mind to say, okay, I'm not doing this. And when I recognize that I'm going to step back from it.
Yeah, and people can use things like tactical breathing, grounding exercises, mindfulness. Even directly after a shift, you've incorporated a lot of these into your regimen. Something simple for me, just thinking back to times I have been at my house, and Clint, you've seen this, but you might not have recognized it. But there are times where that it's a sense of pressure that starts to build up for me will happen. I take my phone, I set it down, and I go walk outside. And sometimes, even if I'm like in my leggings, I'll go stick my feet inside of the pool. And and nobody bothers me out there. I think maybe subconsciously people know. And I'm just out there by myself, listening to the birds, thinking about my mom. Like, this is my childhood home. Like, I just have a little bit of peace for myself.
Yeah, and it's important to have that, because I think it's one thing that I think in those instances, like me and your dad will just sit there and we'll talk, and we'll just, because your dad will always go, what's Ashley doing? And I'll say, well, she's just going out. She just wants to be outside for a minute.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to recognize that when you have found something like that brings you a sense of calmness and peace, to lean into that more, right? Like I know that every time I'm at my dad's, I'm probably going to end up doing that. And it's because it's become something that's habitual for me to find that sense of peace and that calm for myself. And guess what? Not one single time while I'm out there do I think about that to-do list.
Yeah, and it's really good. It's that hidden checklist that you're able to go separate yourself from and to have that sense of peace.
And there are times where you and I will have these sort of business meetings where, we'll check in with each other, and there might need to be things that should be recalibrated within our home, our marriage, our conversations, a wide range of things. And we have no problem being open about it or calling things out in the moment. And even something as simple as, yesterday there was something I said, and then I don't remember the exact context, otherwise I would share it. But your response to me later, after I was done washing off my makeup and everything, I was like, I think you might have taken that the wrong way. So when I came back to you, I paused life and I said, hey, I said this, and then your response was this. Like, I hope you didn't take it as like me meaning something that I didn't, and having those kind of call outs, because I feel like a lot of those little things can add to that buildup of pressure.
Yeah, and it's really good to have that self-recognition, or to have that recognition with one another to be able to respond to it. Because when you are recognizing that for yourself, whether it's something good, bad, or ugly, whatever it may be, it's important because it could lead to that pressure building up, and to have those conversations with one another. It's good, because then you can hold on to that on your own end as well.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.